The other day, I was in a committee meeting at our conference, and we began praying for people who were sick. We prayed for John Bradshaw, it is written, after his surgery. Those of you who don't know, he was diagnosed with a cancer of his tongue. We don't know how seriously he went through surgery, and he's getting well right now. And every time we have committee meetings and we ask for prayers, there's always somebody, a member of the committee, who would say, my uncle is sick, 4th stage cancer. My aunt or my sister, somewhere. Always there's somebody. And our president said something like, you know what, folks? We know we're all going to die. Even if Jesus doesn't come in our lifetime, we know we're all going to die. However, we also know we're never wired for death. We still fear death. We hate it. We don't welcome death, even if we know we're all going to die. There's no fatalistic thinking, because we were never created to die. And the thought of being killed, the thought of dying, the thought of suffering scares us. When I turned 60, I began to think about it. How many more years? If God doesn't come into my lifetime and if God saves me from any illness that is serious or any accident, how many more years do I have? My dad is now 92, still active. I may have the genes of a long life. If I can be like my dad's 92, I have only 32 years to live. But what if I began to be scared about it until I began to pray and say, Lord, take this fear out of me. And then somebody told me, Dan, don't worry about dying. When I talked with him, every time you go to bed, you die. Because you don't know you're not in control. And God is only the one who will decide whether you wake up the next morning or not. So don't worry. You'll just be asleep. That comforted me. But anyway, when I hear that people are sick and people are dying, it scares us. And David was no different. At this time, as I've said, Paul was running after his life. Paul was trying to kill him. He was surrounded by enemies, and so he went on by saying, after saying, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And then he goes on, you even prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You see, would you be able to eat and enjoy your food if your enemy is just waiting for you after you go out of that restaurant or your house? David was always surrounded by enemies. And yet he said, Yahweh makes me enjoy a banquet as I face my enemies. That is how faithful the Lord is. Amen. Yahweh is. Amen. And you know what? Sometimes when we are in the valley of the shadow of death, He brings us through, here and now. Sometimes He does not. But when He comes for the second time, He will have brought us through, finally, the valley of the shadow of death. David feared this. And this was the time when he knew the Lord was closest to him. So instead of talking about Him, he begins talking to Him. Right? He begins talking to Him. Because the time when we are so fearful is the time that God is so close to each one of us. This is how faithful Yahweh is to His people. He provides for all our needs. There's a story about these friends. One was a wealthy atheist, and the one was a poor Christian. I don't know why Christians are always poorer than the rest. I wish I can say, I'm a Christian and I'm a millionaire. No. Well, they were friends, and yet they knew each other's beliefs. He, the atheist, was an unbeliever. He, the Christian, was a believer. And they know each other. They were neighbors, and they knew everything, even their private lives, of each other. And from time to time, as they talked, the rich atheist would say, how come your God isn't providing for you what I have? I don't have a God. Don't believe in Him, and yet I have. Not in an insulting way, but in a friendly way. And the poor Christian said, well, He has never forsaken me. I have held on to his promise in Psalm 37:25. He will never forsake me. I don't have any children, therefore nobody will be begging for bread. Takes care of me. And he was always in between jobs. This poor Christian. And his friend atheist knew about it. Now one particular day, the atheist knew that for about 2 weeks now, his friend didn't have a job. And therefore, he may not be eating regularly. And so one evening, he eavesdropped. Now, I don't suggest you do this to other people, especially in America. He eavesdropped at his neighbor's house. And he knew that something must be going on. And when he heard what was going on, he was praying. It was evening, time for the evening meal, and he listened carefully to the words of his friend because he was praying loudly. He said, Lord, you gave me my breakfast this morning. You gave me my lunch. Now it's time for supper, and I don't have anything in it. You have never forsaken me, Lord. Give it to me. And the atheist found the opportunity to insult his God. Now I'm going to prove to him, he said in his mind, that his God is not the one providing for him. He went back to his house, got a few loaves of bread and got some jam with it and some fruits, put it in a plastic bag. And, they were friends. He could open the door to his friend's house. He silently, quietly went in, opened the door, and as the man was praying, he lowered the bag of food in front of this man on the table. Then he retreated back into the shadow so he would not be seen, and the prayer was finished. Thank you, Lord. And when he opened his eyes, lo and behold, there was food. Now before he ate it, because he was a Christian, he prayed again. Lord, you've done it again. You've done it again. Just as I was praying, here is food for tonight. And his atheist friend came out of the shadows and began laughing and mocking him. He said, look at you, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Didn't you know that while you were praying, I took that food and placed it in front of you? How can you thank your God when it was I who gave the food? You know the story. Some of you have heard the story. And the Christian bowed his head again and said, Lord, thank you, for you even used the devil to give me the food. Isn't it true? He provides for all our needs. Well, let me finish this sermon by a story. It's a little long story, but this is a very personal story to me. My wife knows all about this. And with this story, I can assure you that in every situation, even in the worst, the shepherd Yahweh will always lead us through the valley of the shadow of death, facing our worst enemies. Her name was Christina Zafiro. She's from Davao. She was from Davao. I met her when she enrolled in some of my classes at AUP. I stopped saying PUC, now AUP. I get tired of saying that. It was PUC then. Now I just call it AUP. He took several courses out under me, Bible courses. And she was very smart and intelligent. And after taking several courses under me, Daniel Revelation, Christian Beliefs, Life and Teachings of Jesus, I think 4, another one, Denominational History. In the course of her taking this, we became friends. She's from Davao. She speaks Cebuana. I still speak Cebuano because I studied in LVC. And therefore, we became really close friends. And because I did not check uniforms, remember Bernadette? Never checked uniforms in my classes. A lot of students wanted to attend my classes. I didn't care about what uniform they wore. We became really close friends with Christina. She was a loner, very attractive. Now, let me make a disclaimer here. Not as attractive as Mrs. Robles and Mrs. Botabara. Second only to them. Very attractive, very friendly. And another disclaimer here. There was nothing romantic or sexual about our relationship. We were just friends. Just like my friendship with Bernadette, one of and Ismael, of course, very close students of mine. After a while, I noticed she wasn't there anymore. I asked some of her classmates. They told me, oh, Christina went back to Davao. She's going to finish her studies in Davao because of a family issue that she needs to be there. And so I never heard or seen her from then on. 2001, after 7 years of serving in the Illinois Conference, I answered the call to come over to Central California Conference. Went to San Jose. And after a few days in San Jose, I got a call. And the call said, Pastor Dan, this is Christina Zafiro. Do you remember me? I said, yes. Yes, I remember you. You took several of my classes. How are you right now? And how come I never seen you before? Well, she said she went back to Davao, finished her studies there, came to America with all of her family, got married, and now she's a nurse. She graduated from Davao with a medical technology degree. When she came to America, she took nursing. She said, I'm a nurse. She was one of the first non-members of my church who gave me a call to welcome me to the Silicon Valley, and I was happy. And she said, sir, just tell me anything. If we could be of help for anything, I can drive you to PUC, Pacific Union College, because my daughter, Joy, at that time wanted to go to PUC, and so she did. She said, I can drive you there. I said, it's okay, thank you very much for offering. We can find anything. And so we reminisced the times, the few semesters she was in PUC. And then I met her in her church. She was going to another church about 5 miles away from my church. She introduced me to her husband, John Espalita. And then every time there would be area churches gatherings or evangelistic series where churches attended, we would bump on each other, we would talk. There were some times when she called me for some personal advice regarding her and her husband, or some members of her church who were Filipinos who wanted to get Bible studies from me, and she would call me. And so the friendship was renewed. 2007.